Part One, Chapter 14 of The Idiot. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Eva M. Martin. Part One, Chapter 14. I have no wit, Nastasia Philipovna, began Ferdishenko, and therefore I talk too much, perhaps. Were I as witty now as Mr. Totski or the General, I should probably have sat silent all the evening, as they have. Now, prince, what do you think? Are there not far more thieves than honest men in this world? Don't you think we may say there does not exist a single person so honest that he has never stolen anything whatever in his life? What a silly idea, said the actress. Of course it is not the case. I have never stolen anything for one. Very well, Daria Alexeyevna, you have not stolen anything. Agreed. But how about the prince now? Look how he is blushing. I think you are partially right, but you exaggerate, said the prince, who had certainly blushed up of a sudden, for some reason or other. Ferdishenko, either tell us your story or be quiet and mind your own business. You exhaust all patience, cuttingly and irritably remarked Nastasia Philipovna. Immediately. As for my story, gentlemen, it is too stupid and absurd to tell you. I assure you I am not a thief, and yet I have stolen. I cannot explain why. It was at Semyon Ivanovitch Ishenka's country house one Sunday. He had a dinner party. After dinner, the men stayed at the table over their wine. It struck me to ask the daughter of the house to play something on the piano, so I passed through the corner room to join the ladies. In that room, on Maria Ivanovna's writing table, I observed a 3-rouble note. She must have taken it out for some purpose and left it lying there. There was no one about. I took up the note and put it in my pocket. Why, I can't say. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but it was done, and I went quickly back to the dining room and reseated myself at the dinner table. I sat and waited there in a great state of excitement. I talked hard and told lots of stories and laughed like mad. Then I joined the ladies. In half an hour or so the loss was discovered, and the servants were being put under examination. Daria, the housemaid, was suspected. I exhibited the greatest interest and sympathy, and I remember that poor Daria quite lost her head, and that I began assuring her, before everyone, that I would guarantee her forgiveness on the part of her mistress if she would confess her guilt. They all stared at the girl, and I remember a most wonderful attraction in the reflection that here was I sermonizing away, with the money in my own pocket all the while. I went and spent the 3 roubles that very evening at a restaurant. I went in and asked for a bottle of Lafitte, and drank it up. I wanted to be rid of the money. I did not feel much remorse either then or afterwards. But I would not repeat the performance. Believe it or not, as you please. There, that's all. Only, of course, that's not nearly your worst action, said the actress with evident dislike in her face. That was a psychological phenomenon, not an action, remarked Totski. And what about the maid? Asked Nastasia Philipovna with undisguised contempt. Oh, she was turned out next day, of course. It's a very strict household there. And you allowed it? I should think so, rather. I was not going to return and confess next day, laughed Ferdishenko, who seemed a little surprised at the disagreeable impression which his story had made on all parties. "How mean you were!" said Nastasia. "You wish to hear of a man tell of his worst actions, and you expect the story to come out goody-goody. One's worst actions always are mean. We shall see what the general has to say for himself now. All is not gold that glitters, you know. And because a man keeps his carriage, he need not be specially virtuous, I assure you. All sorts of people keep carriages. And by what means?" In a word, Ferdishenko was very angry, and rapidly forgetting himself. His whole face was drawn with passion. Strange as it may appear, he had expected much better success for his story. These little errors of taste on Ferdishenko's part occurred very frequently. Nastasia trembled with rage, and looked fixedly at him, whereupon he relapsed into alarmed silence. He realized that he had gone a little too far. "Had we not better end this game?" asked Totski. "It's my turn, but I plead exemption," said Ptitsin. "You don't care to oblige us?" asked Nastasia. "I cannot, I assure you. I confess I do not understand how anyone can play this game." "Then, General, it's your turn," continued Nastasia Philipovna. "And if you refuse, the whole game will fall through, which will disappoint me very much, for I was looking forward to relating a certain page of my own life. I am only waiting for you and Afanasy Ivanovitch to have your turns, for I require the support of your example," she added, smiling. "Oh, if you put it that way," cried the general excitedly, "I'm ready to tell the whole story of my life. But I must confess that I prepared a little story in anticipation of my turn." Nastasia smiled amiably at him, but evidently her depression and irritability were increasing with every moment. Totski was dreadfully alarmed to hear her promise a revelation out of her own life. "I, like everyone else," began the general, "have committed certain not altogether graceful actions, so to speak, during the course of my life. But the strangest thing of all in my case is that I should consider the little anecdote which I am now about to give you as a confession of the worst of my bad actions. It is 35 years since it all happened, and yet I cannot to this very day recall the circumstances without, as it were, a sudden pang at the heart. It was a silly affair. I was an ensign at the time. You know ensigns. Their blood is boiling water, their circumstances generally penurious. Well, I had a servant, Nikifor, who used to do everything for me in my quarters, economized and managed for me, and even laid hands on anything he could find, belonging to other people, in order to augment our household goods, but a faithful, honest fellow all the same. I was strict, but just by nature. At that time we were stationed in a small town. I was quartered at an old widow's house, a lieutenant's widow of 80 years of age. She lived in a wretched little wooden house, and had not even a servant, so poor was she. Her relations had all died off, her husband was dead and buried 40 years since, and a niece who had lived with her and bullied her up to 3 years ago was dead too, so that she was quite alone. Well, I was precious dull with her, especially as she was so childish that there was nothing to be got out of her. Eventually she stole a fowl of mine. The business is a mystery to this day, but it could have been no one but herself. I requested to be quartered somewhere else, and was shifted to the other end of the town, to the house of a merchant with a large family, and a long beard, as I remember him. Nikifor and I were delighted to go, But the old lady was not pleased at